Good morning, everyone. Myself, Dr. Saritha, and this video is a continuation of the previous video on The Sea and the Skylark by Gerard Manley Hopkins. We had completed the first 8 lines, that is the octave, and in this video, I will be doing the last 6 lines, that is the sestet. Before exactly explaining the lines, I would tell you something about the poem so that you can connect the poem with the previous video. This sonnet, Sea in the Skylark, was written in 1877 in a seaside town a few miles from St. Bruno's College. Hopkins lived there for about 3 years, that is from 1874 to 1877, to complete his theological studies. In this sonnet, the sea and the skylark are contrasted with man, whose deterioration seems to the poet evident in a tasteless seaside town. It is in standard rhythm, in parts sprung, and in others counterpointed. Whenever we talk about Hopkins, it is mandatory to talk about sprung rhythm. Sprung rhythm is a rhythm in which the primary syllables are compressed together. Stressed syllables are compressed together so that the reading of the poem gives a very different impression. While walking near the sea, the poet hears two sounds which make a deep impression on him. Largely to stress the contrast with the frail, crumbling town, he calls them too old to end. On his right is the sea, which at high tide bounds wildly against the shore. The next line is chiastic, a crosswise arrangement, in which, for example, 4 words or ideas are so paired that the first and last to be mentioned belong together, as do the middle two. At high tide, the sea continually roars, while at ebb, when it is over, a quarter of the mile away, there is a low, lulling sound in the distance. As long as the moon's phases change and it orbits the earth, the sea will be found repeatedly visiting the shore. This sonnet has some tight economy of rhyme, as God's Grandeur is another poem. It is notable for the onomatopoeic effects of the first 2 quatrains, produced by a skillful patterning of vowel and consonant, slow and ponderous in the first, suggesting the eternal sea, and swift and wild in the second, suggesting the pure spirited ecstasy of the skylark. In this poem, he makes a sad prophecy that the static and dynamic aspects of man, which are now in the process of decay and disintegration, will utterly collapse. Man will then be deprived of all his vitality and creativity, will find himself moving fast towards the original state of slime from which he had emerged. Man, through his activities, has set in motion a reversal of the creative process, which suggests a return to the primal swamp from which he came. Referring to the last lines of the poem, a critic says, if the image seems exaggerated, it nevertheless prefigures that reality of polluted towns and rivers which Hopkins was to experience later in industrial Lancashire or British landscape. Now, we shall go on to explain the last 6 lines of the poem, that is the sestet. How these two tell the past prime. Let me read the lines for you. How these two shame the shallow and frail town. How wring right out our sordid, turbid time. Being pure, we life's pride and cared for crown have lost that cheer and charm of earth's past prime. Our make and making break are breaking down. To man's last dust drain fast towards man's first slime. In these lines, we see the theme of the sonnet, which is the contrast between the life-giving purity of nature and the sordidness of the civilization that man is creating. The poet hears two natural sounds, the sound of the sea waves and the sound of the skylark singing in the air. He feels much impressed by these sounds. Natural beauty is still a living force to him and a constant reassurance of God's concern for the world. In these lines, the poet contrasts the elemental purity with the shallow and frail town with its sordid, turbid look and atmosphere. The town referred to is Ryle. This town was a summer resort to which English people thronged from May onward. But during the off season, the town appeared to be a ghost town. The poet says that the two sounds of the sea and the skylark are putting Ryle to shame. The voices emanating from nature rise far above the sordid and confused human sounds. It is so because the voices from the objects of nature are pure. The town is shallow and pale. The human sounds of the town are sordid and confused. The poet says that we, human beings, are the pride of creation and the crown of all beings in the world. Even God cares for the human beings, yet we have lost that cheer and charm, the state of joy, because of the sinfulness and selfishness of our industrial civilization. We have lost the state of innocence and happiness which man enjoyed in ancient times. J.F.J. Russell writes, "The town has no concrete presence in the poetry comparable with that of the sea and the skylark. Its shallowness and frailty and the sordid turbidness of time are mere assertions. It is impossible to attach any real meaning to the statement that the sea and the skylark are pure. Both are simply being used as a stick with which to beat mankind. The cheer and charm of Earth's past prime is at the very least a gross oversimplification of the history of the human race." The poem tells us not so much about the 19th century as about Hopkins himself, that the underlying optimism about human nature, which was present in the wreck of the Deutschland, has faded and has been replaced by a sense of foreboding. Whereas previously Hopkins looked forward to the holy Christian world, he now looks nostalgically back to the past. Hopkins's sensitivity to beauty seems to be so delicate that he appears unable to consider industrialization except with overwhelming horror. He never enters into the life of industrial society and finds it lacking, wanting. He merely stands at a distance and condemns them. Moving on to the final lines, 13 to 14. In these lines, while walking near the sea, the poet hears two sounds which make a deep impression on him. The poet says that man was created last as life's crown. In the book of Genesis, Bible, Genesis, book 1, God's special care, but to the poet, both man as species, that is make, and his products, the shallow and the frail town, that is making, seem to be crumbling back to dust. The poet says that we are gradually being reduced to the fearless materials out of which we have been made. It was out of dust or slime. Genesis, the reference is to Genesis, Bible, that man was originally made, and to dust we shall ultimately return. We are losing our constructive energy rapidly and are moving fast to our doom, to our original state of slime. These last lines recall the burial service to man's last dust, drain fast towards man's first slime. I hope this has been clear, girls. Thank you.